Welcome to iCommunicate on Full Service Radio, AM 830 WCRN. To join the conversation, call 508-871-7000. Now, here's your host, Mark Altman.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another edition of iCommunicate. I am your host, Mark Altman, and before I introduce our very special guest, I just want to alert our listening audience that we are about 53 hours away from kickoff for the Patriots game this Sunday, and it is time to get pumped up. Pete Carroll pumped up. So before we get into the matters at hand today of advocating for yourself, finding your voice in communication, I'd like to introduce a very special guest, a longtime great friend of mine, Dave Cousineau, CEO of Forms and Supplies Unlimited, also known as FSU. Actually owns two companies, Worcester native, and his company specializes in marketing and promotional products. And Dave, I got to tell you, I'm thrilled to have you here today.
Couldn't be more pleased. I guess the appropriate response would be that I'm pumped and jacked
All
to
right.
be here. So
Love
thank
it.
you very, very
Love it.
much. And go Pats.
Outstanding. So Dave, I always, whenever I have guests on the show, I always like to start out really by learning about you and your background. And, I know earlier in your career, I know you graduated from Assumption, and before you joined Forms and Supplies Unlimited, you were in sales positions. And it always strikes me, Dave, because sales is such a tough job. And I always think to myself, why do we go into sales? Why would you? So what prompted you? Where does your passion come from to do what you do? And what prompted you, pray tell, to pursue sales?
Multifaceted question. So I can tell you without fault, the desire to be into sales came from my days back growing up in Tatnick Square and at the CYC at Christ the King Church, where I was an active member. We were always a very active CYC. We had a show, and I remember, I think it was my sophomore, junior year, we were asked to sell advertising for the program for that show. And there was something about it that just struck home. I was very comfortable going and asking businesses, something I had never done before, which was just introducing myself, explaining what the show was, who we were, and asking if they would be open to putting an ad in the program. And I swear it stuck. I've never ever, it was from those days that I knew that I would be in sales to some degree. I liked building the relationship. I liked addressing someone. I almost liked overcoming that fear as well that I had.
Well, that's what I was just going to ask you, Dave. And I don't know if you remember this, but when you were in high school and you were going through that experience, do you remember being turned down and rejected? Do you remember if that affected you at all? Because no one likes to be rejected. So do you remember it?
I would love to say I was never turned down or rejected, but boy, that would not be the case. Of course I was. Of course, you come to learn that some things are not a fit for certain businesses, and you could walk into some place and say, "Hey, I'd like to ask you about an ad in our CYC show," and someone would say, "Not a good time, not interested," or whatever the case might be. And though I would like to say it never affected me, of course it did, but that didn't stop the next door from being knocked on.
Dave, I know, I happen to know Dave's family and specifically his parents. I think so much of being a successful entrepreneur, a successful professional, is having a great support system around you. I think that's so critical. So as you were growing up, finished high school, went to Assumption, are there particular characteristics or traits that you remember that your parents really impressed upon you that have served you in being a successful executive now?
Well, thank you for bringing them up, because I'm pretty blessed to have the overall family and support system that I have. So the answer to your question is, of course, it starts with a level of integrity and honesty that you just, I use the expression, you can't put your head on the pillow at night if you can't know that you've done the right thing and try to do the right thing by others. So those were just ingrained in just our everyday being. For both my younger sister and my older brother, excuse me, I think we all try to continue that. And my parents, who are the salt of the earth, by the way, would be pleased to know that we walk every day trying to emulate the type of characteristics that they put forth and showed us on how to be a good person. I think from being a good person gives you the strength and the ability to flourish in whatever it is you're going to try to do. In this case, in my case, it's sales. But even though it's labeled as sales, I just find myself not really selling as much as I like interacting with people and trying to establish some form of a relationship. Friendship is what I always try to aspire to, but I use the expression in my work world to segue over to the FSU things. FSU has given me, I guess, a platform to kind of create a bridge of trust that goods and services would flow over. And I feel like trying to be a good person every day affords that, one of the foundation pieces to that bridge.
So Dave, after Assumption and after you tried some various jobs in between, and then you hooked on with FSU, and when did you know during your experience at FSU, because am I right, is this your 21st year with FSU?
25th.
25th year at FSU, okay. So when did you know during your tenure at FSU that this was the future? And more importantly than when do you know, how did you know?
Neat question. I would say I don't know if there is a when did I know, because I think it just morphed into the how. And I think the how was that I felt very at ease knowing that every day was going to be different, and yet still provide a challenge. So I feel as I was working with other people, working with clients, and realizing that those clients, many of which have become friends, good friends, that was a very comfortable place for me to exist. And people always say, oh, you never work a day in your life if you do what you love. Turns out I've been lucky enough to do what I've enjoyed thoroughly, stressful at times, successful at times, and crazy at times for what you do in this industry. But I've been lucky enough to enjoy very much what I've been doing. So I guess the answer is that it just evolved naturally. And I felt, again, in tune with what we could provide, to whom we could provide it to, and the ability to tap into some creativity that I feel like I was able to foster, and the ability to create tap into my resources and be able to work with a wide customer base.
So Dave, there's so many ups and downs. I don't care what role you take on as a professional. I mean, certainly an entrepreneur, an executive salesperson, there's tons of ups and downs. My question to you is, when you recognize you're going through those peaks and valleys that is business, what do you do to be resilient? Are you savvy enough to be aware when you're catching yourself so you don't get any prolonged slumps or whatever? What do you do to maintain resiliency in those situations?
When you're in sales, I don't think you can just fall back on the "this too shall pass" expression.
Well said. Well
said. Sadly accurate. However, knowing that you've created a foundation of clients, of products, of customer relationships and networking, I think you just sometimes fall back to basics. You just do what you do, and have faith in yourself and the company and I guess the economy as well to keep plugging away. It sounds really, I think, generic and if not vague, but truly at the end of the day, when I feel like, gosh, I'm just feeling slow right now, or I don't feel the upbeat to some future projects that I've got, I kind of go back to basics. And one of the things that I guess I take great pride in, as much as I'm blessed with a great family, I'm blessed with a great friend base. And that friendship, I often feel, exists because I try to make the effort towards friendships. I try to reach out, I try to communicate. I've always been known as a phone guy, so people say, oh, geez, you called, thanks for calling. When I go back to basics, sometimes I'll grab the phone and I'll just check in with people that I haven't talked with for a while. And lo and behold, activity breeds activity. And sometimes if you just pick up the phone and you reach out and you say, hey, I was thinking about you, that touches something with people and they appreciate it and they want to perhaps take a step towards a project and create a new project.
All right, Dave, great point. We will be back right after the break. I'm your host, Mark Altman, here with Dave Cousineau. We will be right back.